Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, Fans of Serif Software and Affinity Designer and Photo Group. Now this tutorial is a beginner's look at text tools and the manipulation of text. Now I was to say at the outset, although I have used programs that have used text, like word processors, desktop publishers, photo programs for many years now, I do not consider myself to be an expert on manipulating text a great deal. I've just sort of picked up bits and pieces here and there, so I'm not claiming to know everything, and if I get something wrong I apologize in advance, but this is really just for beginners, so hopefully my knowledge is adequate enough to help advise beginners in these sort of programs. Now we are going to be looking at Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. I've opened an A4 document in both, and pretty much what you can do in one you can do in the other. The basic tools are the same as far as I can tell. If there are going to be any differences as far as the tools are concerned, I'm guessing that Affinity Designer may have slightly more options because you don't use text so much with photo editing. But as far as I can tell so far, I can't see any difference between the two programs within the options that they provide. The only real difference will be where some of these options are found. They are slightly different positions, but they are sort of all basically there. Now if I go to the internet for a second, from the Affinity Designer and Photo Group, this all came about because David Gruber asked about, he had the word name 3 different times and 3 different layers, different sizes, and he wanted to have them the same distance apart. Now Alex Wolf made a very small video showing him how to do this, and it got me thinking about, there must be quite a few people out there who just learning programs like this who don't really know too much about text. So I'm going to sort of incorporate sort of answering David's original question somewhere within this video, and other questions people may have about using text. So let's start. Now in both programs, down the tools toolbar down here you have a big A, and there's a little arrow next to it, and you have 2 options. If you click on that, you have Artistic Text Tool and Frame Text Tool. Now the Artistic Text Tool will sort of, you just start typing a sort of a word however you want it. You can place it wherever you want. As you can see, there's, once you've clicked on that, the cursor changes to a crosshair with a big A next to it. So you could put it anywhere you want on the document, and you just click and hold and drag outwards to get the size that you want, and then you get this flashing cursor and you just start typing. So you'd use this sort of artistic text tool for sort of like letter headings and things like that. And if I come to Affinity Photo, and again you got this big A down here, and this time I'm going to use the Frame Text Tool, and this time the cursor changes to a T, and again you can place it anywhere you want on the document. Just click and hold and drag out, and as you can see it's dragging out a box, and then you have this box where you can place text anywhere in it, and you may not be able to see it, but at the moment there's a flashing cursor up here in the top left corner, and I could type in it's a bit small at the moment, but that is, as you can see, this would be if you're going to type a whole paragraph, you know, a letter almost, or any sort of document that's got lots and lots of text in it, rather than just a heading that may have just 1 or 2 words in it. Now you can alter the size, because once you have either one of the text options selected, you get various options along the top here. So I could, if I put a space here, and then I change the font size. Let's go for a much bigger font size. Let's try 64 this time, and repeat what I just typed. And if I click and put the cursor within this part of the text, you can see that was 12 points, and this is 64 points. You can highlight all the text, and as there are 2 different font sizes within this highlighted text, the font size has now disappeared, and whatever I select now, both of those words would now be the font size that is selected. Next to these options, you have the actual font style itself, which is currently set on Arial, but there is a drop down list, and as you go through all the different fonts, as you can see on the screen, it will change to that font. The text that you've typed will change to that font, so you can see what it will look like and find the one that you want it to use. Let's stick with that one for the moment. Cinema Gothic. Now we also have other options here, but I will cover some of those a bit later. Now in the middle here you have 4 options. You've got align left, align center, align right, and justify left. So again, if I highlight all of these, at the moment it's on justify left, which means all these 4 separate lines all start at the left hand side. If I click justify right, they will all come over here to the right. Justify center, they will all be equally placed in the center of this box, and the justify left, it just means that they will spread the word out to fit within your text box, but will basically start from the left hand side. Okay, if I go back to just click on the frame text tool, you will get the bounding box back, and you can alter the size of the bounding box if you want to add more text or reduce the text, but just by clicking on one of the, let me turn off snapping, just by clicking on one of the nodes, and then you can alter the size of the box, or if you come to the move tool you can move it to wherever you want it. Similarly, with artistic text you can have the bounding box around the outside, but this time when you alter this, it will alter the actual size of the text itself. So you can make it bigger and stretch it out in all sorts of different directions. And again, with the move tool, put it wherever you want. So let me just delete that layer there, and I'll do the same with that layer. Right, and go back to Designer, and what I'm going to do is again select artistic text, but I'm going to preset the size before we start, say 36, and if I just click somewhere on screen, the cursor will start ready in the preset font and size. So I can do that size, and I could again just click, say, somewhere down here and make it a totally different size. And then click again and even change the font this time and the size. Let's go for 64. Now, as the program is still expecting me to be typing something, you don't have a bounding box. But as soon as you move the mouse, it's assuming you're not typing anymore, that bounding box will show up, so you can then make alterations. So, answering the question that was originally the idea behind this is, if you select all three of these layers, you can either do it from the layers panel over here, just by, if the top layer is already highlighted, you can hold down the shift key and click on the bottom layer, and it will highlight and select all of them, putting the bounding box around all three bits of text. So you could, if you want, change their size and move them around or what have you. But the answer to the question was, you can use the arrange button. If you click on this here, you could arrange them all to be in the center of the bounding box, and you could make them spaced vertically the same distance apart. So that would have answered David's original question about equally spacing the different size fonts. You just click OK, and that will put that into place. And once you click back on just one of these layers, only one of those will have the bounding box, and you're no longer affecting all three of them at the same time. So that arrange button can be done from this particular button, or you can, I think you can do it from the text menu, and then you've got alignment, and you've got align left, center, right, and then Affinity photo. You come to the text tool. Once you click on the text tool, I'll change to artistic text on this one. The arrange button is up here near to the right hand top corner, whereas in Designer it is near the middle. So like I said earlier on, the tools are the same in both programs, they just might be slightly different places where you can find them. So moving on to the next part, let me just get rid of this. I'm doing this in Affinity Photo now. Now once you have selected artistic text or frame text, another one of the options along the top here is there's two buttons, character and paragraph. Now paragraph gives you the options that you can use if you are doing frame text, because you have how the paragraphs work with each other, which I'm not going to really look at the moment, because a lot of these options will work the same with whether you're using a single letter or whole paragraphs. Let me get rid of that. If I click on the character, it opens up the character box, which has a lot of similar options to what we have up here, like the font, the size, whether it's bold, italic, narrow, what have you. And but you do have other options. I mean, up here you've got the fill and stroke, and you have those here. But basically, although it's got fill up here, it is the font color, and the stroke is what they class in this box as background color. So let me just, if I click in this box here, I'm going to set the background color to yellow, and I'll leave the font color black, and then I'm just going to click on here, and when I type, as you can see, the background is yellow and the font is black. So that's those options that you can set the background color, so it's been highlighted with a pen, for example. Let me just get rid of the color for the next part. Right, let me just move this down and out of the way. Right, back on the character panel, you can change the size of either the next bit that you're going to type, or if you highlight the text, you can alter the size of what you've already typed. And you can also change whether it's bold, narrow, regular. Let's go with regular on that one, and we'll change the font size. Font itself. So if you've got the whole text highlighted, the changes that you make up here will affect everything. Let me just click in here to get rid of the fact that I'm altering all of the text. And then we come to some other options down here. Again, I need to highlight all of this text, because at the moment this text is not underlined, but you can either underline it with one line, or you can underline it with two, and then you can change the color of that underlining. At the moment it is basically set to the same color as the font, which is black. And then you have what is known as strike through, which is just puts a line through the text. I've never fully understood why anybody would want to do that, but that option is there. Now this next part is can be a bit of a struggle, I find sometimes, how and when to use these options, but the kerning should be the distance between the individual characters. It's set on auto, and I've never yet worked out how to turn it off of auto, so I'm guessing that is fixed. Next we have tracking, which again, from what I can see, would do exactly the same as kerning, in the sense that it alters the distance between the text. But this one you can change. So you're altering the distance between each letter, but move them closer or further apart. In fact, let me just had a thought. If I put that singularly in there, I see. Kerning is the space between individual letters. So if I wanted to move the I further away from the R, I could do it that way, or nearer to the R. Whereas tracking affects the whole word if it's highlighted. See, even I'm learning something new as I'm going along. Right, baseline. Now currently the baseline would be where the bottom of this bounding box is, and this is set on 0. You can move the text below the baseline or above the baseline. Again, I'm not 100% certain when and where you would use that, but that is that option. Right, leading override. Now this is the gap between two lines or two or more lines of text. So let me just quickly type the same thing. Like so. So now if I alter this, you can see that the gap between the two versions of that text there alters. So the leading, that is altering the gap between this line and the line below it. Right, next we have shear, and shear will lean either to the left, the text to the left or the right, and you can just click the one arrow to move it one way, or the down arrow to lean it the other way. Let me put this back to 0 so it's leaning straight again. Right, horizontal scale will just sort of very similar really to as if I'd held this node and dragged it to the right, stretching it that way. And this one, the vertical scale, would be very similar as if I'd clicked the bottom or top node and dragged it down or up the other way. So you can alter the size of the text in various ways like that. Now, this is where I do get slightly lost with these. Now I have found that these topographical options only sort of appear really once you start typing. It doesn't you can't just set them before you start typing, which does seem a bit strange to me, but you can change. And I don't understand a lot of this terminology, but you've got standard, ligatures, contextual alternates, ordinals, fractions, superscript, subscript, all capitals, small capitals. So I'll be having another look at that in a little while. But basically, that is that part of this tutorial. Let me go back to Affinity Designer, and I will get rid of this text here. And I'm going to put a new bit of text here, and again I'm going to open the character panel. Now I don't know whether this is true of everybody's version of Designer, because when I used the character button in Photo, it just opened up this small box. I think it opened up here and then I moved it over here, but in Designer it opened it up as a separate panel down the left. I don't know quite why they've done that differently, but you should be able to, I can drag this out and away from the panel, so I've got it as a floating panel in its own right, and I should be able to similarly dock this. It should dock. Here we go. I could dock it over there in Photo, but I'll drag it out again because I prefer it to be sort of floating around and gives me more room to move. So like I said, we've got the same sort of options here. Now on the top here, next to the cross where you close the character panel, you have this little icon that gives you a little menu, and it is little, it only has one option. It says show typography, and this opens up a typography panel, which is basically what was down here, and it has various options. It hasn't got them all shown at the start. If you want to see them all, you have to put a tick in to show all font features, and there you have all these different ones. Well, let me just hide that again for a minute, because at the moment with my text, whatever I have typed here, which is just serif, as you can see it has the serif there, and it will give you a very brief idea of what it will look like with whichever option you pick. So this is set on normal, but if I set it onto all caps, first of all, might help if I highlight the text and then change it to all caps or small caps or all small caps. So they're like the basic options. So again, if I open up the show all font features, you have, obviously the different fonts have different features. So if I change this font to, if I change this back to Arial, there are a lot more options with the Arial font than there was with the one I had previously, because it's a different, I don't know, again I don't know too much about fonts, but I believe the other one is like a true font and one's an open font. I may be miles out there, but I think more professionally made fonts will give you more options in the topographical panel. So you could change the different styles. I don't really know what stylistic alternates would do, but looking at the sort of display of what the text will look like, there's not too much difference between all of those at the moment. Let me go back to, yes, we are on normal, but we go back to capitals, we go back to normal, so it's not all capitalized. So now there is a bit more difference between sort of like stylistic set 1 and stylistic set 2, and you can sort of tick more than one option here. But it doesn't always have an effect. Right, moving down. I'm not going to go for all of these different things because, one, I don't fully understand them all, but I don't want to make this video too long. But again, you can change the different capitalization and whether they are superscript or subscript. As you can see from this sort of representation here, if I select subscript, you're going to get a very small E. Again, quite why you would want that, I don't fully understand. So I'll put that back to normal. But they are the different options that you can have via the typography panel that you can open via the character panel. Right, let me close both of those panels, and that is sort of pretty much the last thing I want to do as far as looking at the various options you have within the text tools. But I do just want to finally add that you can add effects to the text via the effects menu, which is in the layers. Now you can either come to effects tab here and you have the options this way, or you can click on the FX button down the bottom and it will open up the effects panel as a sort of floating panel rather than down here, which I personally prefer. So I will again highlight all the text, and you can click on the option that you want to get the various options, and then you could add a sort of drop shadow like that. You can also sort of outline the text and change the color of that outline. Like so. And you could even make it look a bit 3D. Again, you need to tinker with the settings. So you've got all sorts of various options that you can check out by adding effects to the text. Let me just zoom in so you can see that. So you can see that, so it has a sort of 3D effect with the outline and the drop shadow. So that is the end of this video. And like I said, it is hopefully just a basic idea on what you can do with text, and hopefully you will sort of look into it a bit better and learn a bit more about how to use text in your projects, be it in Designer or Photo. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.